cars are rarely as crucial to their makers or buyers as this E-Class model is to Mercedes. This full-sized executive segment contender is the backbone of the German company's range and a perennial favourite of the corporate car park. Improved Saloon and Estate versions of this 10th generation W213 series model retain a sensible side, but dial up the desirability, aiming to offer a smarter, more prestigious approach to executive class motoring than close competitors. They do so with more efficient engines, cutting-edge drive technology, and comfort that makes you question the need for a larger luxury saloon. Rivals from Audi, BMW and Jaguar still have quite a benchmark to aim at.
No car epitomises what Mercedes-Benz stands for better than this one, the E-Class. This is a significantly updated version of the W213 series model we first saw in 2017, which found over 1.2 million global customers in its first 4 years on sale, before we saw the much improved version of this design that we're going to look at here. A car which aims to bring a touch of S-Class to the brand's core full executive contender. The E-Class, of course, has quite a history. Mercedes believes this to be the 10th generation version of this car, although to date there have actually only been 5 designs in this model line badged E-Class. The first of them was launched back in 1993, and that was merely an updated version of the W124 series model that was launched 7 years earlier. A proper redesign, the W210 model, followed in 1996, then a W211 series model in 2003, and a W212 series design in 2010, the direct predecessor of the car that we're looking at today. The roots of this model line, though, really stretch way back to 1953 and an original W120 series ponton design, widely regarded as the company's first truly modern vehicle. Some at Mercedes put the start of this model line even further back to 1946 and the post-war launch of the 170V Saloon, in which case over 14 million sales have been generated up to the present day. Whatever your starting point is, though, for E-Class heritage, there's lots of it, initially through illustrious models like the W114 series of the 60s and 70s, which introduced diesel engines and a coupe body style option, and its successor, the W123, which established a reputation for quality and sold into the 80s. Throughout, the car that we now know as the E-Class stayed resolutely modern. It pioneered everything from safety passenger cell technology to turbo induction for diesel engines, which is the kind of innovation that continues here in this revitalised W213 series model today. That is essential, of course. When your rivals include cars as good as the Audi A6, the BMW 5 Series and the Jaguar XF, you can't afford not to try to set the standard. All 3 of those cars have been fundamentally improved since this W213 series design was first launched, hence the need to introduce this significantly updated version in mid-2020. A lot is different here, but most of it you can't see. Under the skin sits a totally overhauled electrical system, which not only provides for a wider range of driver assist functions, but also allows certain engines to adopt the brand's latest EQ Power 48-volt mild hybrid tech. There's also a new level of cabin media technology and subtle visual changes, which reflect current Mercedes styling trends. As before, you can have your E-Class in a variety of forms, including coupes and cabriolets, but the core of the range is still made up by the Saloon and Estate variants that we're going to focus on today. Now, we've completed separate E-Class films on the Estate body style, the E53 performance model and the E300DE EQ Power plug-in diesel hybrid, so search for those if you're after those specific variants. Otherwise, stick with us here as we cover the Saloon and Estate E-Class range in Car and Driving's usual comprehensive detail. These 2 body shapes have, Mercedes reckons, as a result of the changes made, been cemented in their position as the full executive segment's definitive 4-door and station wagon offerings. Are they right, though? Here in the industry's most comprehensive test, we're going to find out. Some full-sized executive saloons and estates claim to be sporty, like versions of the BMW 5 Series and the Jaguar XF. Others, like this one, don't feel the need to try that hard unless an AMG 6-cylinder or V8 power plant happens to beat beneath the bonnet there. It doesn't here. This improved version of the W213 Series E-Class is probably the last generation model that's going to be made predominantly with diesel engines being sold. So in recognition of that, we've chosen a black pump fuel derivative to test here, although it's rather an unusual one. The E-Class is the only car in its segment, and it's virtually the only car on the market that can be had with a diesel plug-in hybrid powertrain. This is part of an increasing move towards engine electrification, which headlines the changes made to this 10th generation model. Two of the units in the range you can plug in. This E300DE model is paired with another EQ Boost badged variant, the petrol E300E, and two others get a mere dusting of electrification in the form of the brand's mild hybrid 48-volt tech. You'll find that with the lineup's two primary petrol power plants, the 2-litre 4-cylinder unit found in the entry-level E200 and the potent inline 6 that features in 367 horsepower form in the E450 and in 435 horsepower guise with the performance-orientated E53. Mercedes is also making that 48-volt mild hybrid system available on the main engine that E-Class customers in our market tend to choose, the 2-litre diesel that's found in the volume E220D model, although it hadn't yet been fitted to that unit at the time of our test here in the summer of 2021. That OM654 series power plant also gets a new crankshaft, a higher injection pressure and a few other minor changes. All of the engines work well with the wafty, relaxed gait which characterises this Mercedes. It's aided by effortless changes from a further refined version of the brand's 9G-tronic Plus 9-speed automatic gearbox. This transmission is just so smooth as to be almost seamless, even when you floor the throttle. There's no hesitation or delay, and the gearbox will happily drop down 2 or more gears if a quick overtake's called for. On mainstream models, selective damping from the standard agility control suspension can also contribute significantly to this relaxed demeanour. Ride quality is one of the things that you can alter via the brand's usual dynamic select driving mode system, the others being steering feel, gear change timings and throttle response. There are selectable Eco, Sport and Sport Plus dynamic select settings, plus there's an individual menu if you want to set up your own parameters. But from start off, the system always defaults to its most laid-back comfort mode, which is appropriate because that's where a typical Mercedes customer will want to leave it for most of the time. It delivers that imperious E-Class feeling that makes the world just feel a bit less frenetic and just a bit calmer, especially if you're in the estate version, which gets standard rear air suspension. You're going to appreciate any version of this Mercedes if long highway journeys are a regular part of your life. And if that's so, then you're going to like this car even more if you're able to equip it with what is probably the cleverest piece of technology that's now fitted to this 10th generation model, and that's the optional active distance assist Distronic system that we're trying here. When it's activated, this allows the car to pretty much drive itself, working with the adaptive cruise control, the active steering and the active speed limit assist systems to keep this E-Class rolling in its chosen lane at any chosen speed up to 130 miles an hour. All you have to do to keep the system active is to keep your hands on this new capacitive steering wheel. The car will sense if you don't. It'll warn you in no uncertain terms to pay attention, and if you don't respond then, it'll ultimately stop the car itself and activate the hazard lights to teach you a bit of a lesson. This active distance assist Distronic system is as useful on the high street as it is on the highway. It can drive the car in traffic for you at speeds of up to 37 miles an hour, and out of town with the cruise control set, drive will automatically be adjusted in tune with traffic signs and the bends in the road ahead. Plus, it all works with this E-Class's integrated Car2X communication system. This allows the Mercedes to often almost magically respond to future weather or traffic conditions, or to somehow know what's around the next corner. It's not magic, of course. The setup is instead driven by a mobile phone supported exchange of information system, and that sees this Mercedes sending data on driving conditions back to a central hub, and then that central hub shares it with other Mercedes drivers. It's all very 21st century indeed. All of this technology is aimed at making this a safer and more relaxed car to be in, but that's not to say that Mercedes has forgotten about the basics. Point this car along a twisty stretch of road and it actually handles very well, although unfortunately because of a general lack of steering feel, it prevents you from relishing the experience regardless of which dynamic select mode you choose. If you get beyond this and trust the car to work with you through the turns, you'll find that chassis responses are good and grip levels remarkably high. A BMW 5 Series or a Jaguar XF will certainly offer a slightly more rewarding feel, but there's absolutely no doubt that Mercedes has narrowed the dynamic gap to those cars at the same time as pulling further ahead when it comes to cruising luxury. Overall then, it's an accomplished showing, but it is one that's quite dependent on your choice of engine. So let's finish up here with a bit more detail on those. We can see why so many E-Class buyers choose the E220D diesel. With 194 horsepower and 400 Nm of torque, it's a good all-round partner for this car, making 62 from rest in 7.3 seconds on the way to 149 miles an hour. But don't automatically choose it without also considering the new rejuvenated entry-level petrol model, the E200. This delivers almost exactly the same performance figures as that black pump fuel counterpart and much of the same kind of pulling power that you'd previously have needed a diesel for, and that's thanks to a freshly added 48-volt mild hybrid system's integration of a starter generator unit in the transmission. It produces 14 horsepower more output and 180 Nm more torque. With an E200, you also lose the E220D's rather clattery chatter on startup, although at cruising speeds, when the E200 can glide with the engine automatically switched off, both engines are impressively refined. But not as refined, of course, as the all-electric silence that you can enjoy for short periods with the two EQ Power plug-in hybrid models we mentioned earlier, this E300DE and its green pump stablemate, the E300E. Both use as a starting point the base 2-litre diesel and petrol engines that we just mentioned, but they mate them to a 122 horsepower electric motor powered by a 13.5 kilowatt hour battery, the driving range for which is between 31 and 34 miles depending on the body style and the engine you choose. All that tech weighs a bit, of course. This diesel PHEV tips the scales at around 1.9 tonnes, but the added power, a 306 horsepower combined output for the E300DE and 320 horsepower for the E300E, means the kind of performance you'd normally expect from a much bigger engine. Both variants get to 62 in a fraction under 6 seconds on the way to a maximum that has to be artificially limited at 155 miles an hour. All the other bigger engines in the range have to be had with the brand's 4MATIC Plus four-wheel drive system. Your options here begin with the 3-litre 6-cylinder E400D diesel, which offers 330 horsepower and the kind of lazy 700 Nm torque output, which would be great for easy towing. With that variant, 62 from rest occupies just 4.9 seconds. Or there's the E450, a 3-litre 6-cylinder petrol model, which offers 367 horsepower and makes 62 from rest in just 5 seconds. Otherwise, your E-Class of choice will be of the Mercedes-AMG high-performance petrol variety, possibly the E53 version that we tried recently, an inline 6-cylinder variant which replaced the old V6-powered E43 model shortly after this W213 series E-Class model's original introduction. With 435 horsepower on tap, the E53 delivers a lot of the performance that previously you'd have needed to look to the top V8 E63 to provide, together with a vastly more acceptable set of running costs thanks to the integrated mild hybrid tech. Come to that car and expect it to have the scalpel-sharp handling responses of a similarly priced but slightly smaller Mercedes C63, and you will be disappointed, but it is more everyday usable than one of those thanks to the inclusion of the AMG ride control version of the Mercedes Air Body Control air suspension system. Full air suspension now only features on Mercedes-AMG models. E53 customers also get the AMG Speed Shift TCT paddle shift version of the 9-speed auto gearbox and an AMG performance exhaust too for the authentic sports car soundtrack. You can alter that soundtrack by playing with the settings of the AMG Dynamic Select driving mode system, dial up Sport Plus, and then bury your foot into the carpet, and there's an absolutely huge rush of pulling power, with 520 newton meters of torque being developed thanks to that engine's potent combination of Borg-Warner electrically driven supercharger and twin-scroll turbocharger. That delivers 62 miles an hour in just 4.5 seconds, and via a provided display screen AMG menu, the driver can call up various special displays like engine data, a gear speed indicator, a G-force meter, and a race timer. Handling isn't quite as tenacious as obvious rivals, but they also can't be had in estate form, and particularly in the station wagon guys, the E53 feels brilliantly Q-car-like, with reserves of power and traction that's guaranteed to shock drivers in smaller and supposedly more agile sporting cars attempting to follow you through a series of sharp turns. There's plenty of grip too from the 4MATIC Plus four-wheel drive system, and the steering feedback is much improved over a mainstream E-Class, especially in the two sport modes. All of this is accompanied by various chirrups and a subtle electric whine from the engine bay ahead, while at a cruise that Merc straight 6 settles down into a low rumble. Do you really need to go faster than that in a full-sized executive sport saloon or estate? Well, if you do, the wild V8 powered 612 horsepower E63S model beckons, which makes 62 in just 3.5 seconds on the way to 180 miles an hour. That top Mercedes-AMG model also offers a drift mode as part of the race program that you can select using the gear shift paddles, dynamic engine mounts, an electronic rear axle limited slip differential, and an AMG high performance braking system. They're all included. So is an extra dynamic select driving mode, race, and an AMG Speed Shift MCT gearbox with a race start launch control system for Grand Prix getaways. Keen drivers can expect the result of all that technology to be completely addictive, but it all retails at a figure that's almost twice as high as Mercedes is asking for the E53. That more affordable 6-cylinder variant has less of a feeling of a midlife crisis about it, and if you choose one, then you can reassure any environmental doubters that the 48-volt mild hybrid tech is playing its part in minimising the pollutive effect as you just go ahead and enjoy yourself. Ultimately though, the raison d'etre of the E-Class is more about lowering the heart rate than raising it, and in this improved form, the mainstream versions of this W213 series model that most customers will actually choose feel more accomplished than ever before. There's something special about this car that rivals still struggle to match, and it's still the class benchmark that all of them have to aim at. One of the defining aspects of automotive design lies in creating styling characters so brand specific that badges are hardly needed. This W213 Series E-Class model has always delivered that. It could only be a Mercedes. But what kind of Mercedes? Well, you might have expected the changes made as part of this midterm facelift to take it aesthetically closer to its larger S-Class stablemate. Instead, the styling updates added to the Saloon and the Estate variants that we're focusing on here actually position these body styles visually rather closer to the next model down in the range, the W206 Series C-Class. This remains, though, a stylish piece of design. The powerfully extended silhouette is characterised by short overhangs, a long wheelbase, large wheels and taut, well-defined flanks. Broad shoulders sit above the wheel arches, and the profile is defined by this powerful waist-level swage line that flows from front to rear through the door handles, while this further crease lower down sits above a distinct sill line to give the flanks some shape. The alternative Estate version that adds 10mm of length, and both body styles gain revised aero-influenced wheels. They range from 17 to 20 inches in size. We've got the 18-inch AMG 5 twin-spoke high-gloss black alloys here. We should get to the update changes made as part of this mid-term facelift. There are certainly quite a few of them, as owners of earlier W213 series models will note here at the front. The swept-back, power-domed bonnet flows down into a grille that's been turned upside down. It's now wider at the bottom than it is at the top, and a bit disappointingly, it's now no longer possible to have it with an upstanding bonnet ornament. The LED headlights flanking the grille, they're different too, and in pricier AMG line series variants like this one, they feature Mercedes multi-beam tech with 84 individually controlled LEDs and integrated daytime running lamps. These top models also gain a bumper that's closer to the more assertive style of that used by the Mercedes AMG performance versions, which gains these more overt corner cutouts characterised by twin strakes at either side. It's even more different at the rear, or at least it is with this saloon body shape anyway, which gains much wider, now horizontally orientated LED tail lamps, which now get segmented by this restyled boot lid and sit above this revised bumper. As before, they're connected by a chrome bar that stretches across the width of the boot. Further down, the two exhaust pipe exits have a polished finish too. Mercedes promises us some interesting changes inside too, so let's take a look. At first glance, there don't seem to be too many improvements over what went before, but delve into the detail and you'll find that quite a lot's different here, thanks to the change to the brand's more sophisticated MBUX multimedia system, physically evidenced by the switch to this center console mounted touchpad interface. The multimedia color display that helps to control, this pair of bonded 12.3-inch screens, is now standard across the range. It's a setup we'll brief you on in more detail in a moment. Owners of earlier W213 series models will probably also clock that, well, there's no clock. The earlier car's traditional analog item is now missing. Perhaps the designers thought it looked incongruous with all these screens. Technology has changed the steering wheel too. This improved car's need for a capacitive, touch-sensitive design prompted this complete restyle, which allows for two separate bars of switchgear to be installed along these two horizontal spokes. The dash and fascia design doesn't have the dramatic, futuristic appeal of the latest S-Class. The next generation version of this model will doubtless have that. But at first glance, there's much the same feeling of opulence and quality. You're surrounded by lovely touches like the intricately stitched door cards and these four circular silver center air vents inset into this classy trimming panel. On top models like this one, there's a package which extends the interior's leather finish to the upper part of the dash with classy stitching, which really lifts the feel of the interior. Plus, all variants get the smartest ambient lighting system in the business, a lovely 64 colour setup with LED strips along the bottom of the fascia, on the door cards and along the side of the centre console that give the cabin a very special feel after dark. Now we have to mention the leather seats too. They're perfectly contoured and fitted around the driver to give ample comfort during long trips. On all models they're electrically operated and heated, and they benefit from a seat comfort package which adds electro-pneumatic four-way lumbar support to help avoid any backaches. But it's the screen tech we mentioned earlier that'll particularly grab your attention. That distinctively styled instrument panel incorporates a 12.3-inch instrument cluster and a central media display of the same size. Both monitors housed behind a shared continuous glass surface that flows into the door panels. Now, we had that before with the pre-facelifted model's command setup, but the replacement MBUX, Mercedes-Benz user experience system, builds on this with artificial intelligence capabilities which are able to predict what the user would like to do next. And of course, MBUX has many infotainment functions, including Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring, and a brilliant 3D advanced navigation setup that on the upper spec models comes complete with what Mercedes calls augmented reality technology. Now this is effectively a live camera feed of the road ahead, overlaid with house numbers, road names, direction arrows and other useful bits of information that will help you to find your way. There's also a clever traffic light view feature that, if you're first in the queue at a lighted junction, will superimpose the lamp changing sequence onto the dash so that you're ready for the switch to green without having to continuously crane your head upwards. Whatever you want to access, you'll find that MBUX allows you to control things in various ways, the obvious ones being screen touch and use of the big central touchpad between the seats that we mentioned earlier on. Plus, there are smaller but rather fiddly thumbnail pads on the wheel spokes. Your other activation option is the brand's voice control system, Hey Mercedes.
How can I help?
In our estimation, this is a setup currently rivaled only by BMW for intuitive responsiveness. Conventional voice control technology usually requires certain specific voice commands from users, but this system's linguatronic natural speech recognition is pretty good at understanding almost anything you ask of it. It's particularly good at things like finding new radio stations or telling you what the weather is at a programmed destination. Overall, this MBUX setup is supposed to take in-car connectivity to a new level, and it's certainly difficult to fault, although we think the central touchpad, although it is well designed, isn't quite as easy to use as the lower rotary iDrive controller in a rival BMW 5 Series. This big touchpad deals with the various menus of the high-resolution media display just above, which is divided into phone, nav, radio media, comfort and info segments, plus one for the various apps you'll be able to access, most notably the useful Mercedes Me setup. And there's a further section connecting you to an online store. If you scroll down further, you can access some of these so-called various themes, trip, efficiency and lounge, which combine preset layout and color styles so you can quickly change the cabin ambiance to suit your mood. There are some really sophisticated graphics in play across the menus here on this monitor, especially when it comes to the real-time displays that you'll find in the vehicle section. What else? Well, the interior space is wide with lots of leg and headroom, and slimmer front A-pillars than you'll get in a 5 Series aid your frontward visibility at junctions. Over-the-shoulder visibility, though, is compromised by the enclosed rear quarter section, and A6 is much easier to reverse, so you'll be making frequent use of the standard rear view camera system, the all-round sensors, and possibly also the standard active park assist system that steers you into spaces. The same functionality can be accessed via another tinier touchpad on the left-hand spoke of this redesigned steering wheel, and if you use that to access the provided center screen settings menu, you'll be able to customize the separate digital instrument monitor ahead of you via various design layouts, primarily the two twin dial formats, blue tinged classic and yellow themed sport. The performance models add an extra super sport single dial layout too. Once you've decided what you want, you can use the other provided tiny touchpad on the right hand steering wheel spoke to tailor the instrument cluster screen and to bring what you'd most like to see into regular view, which is possible because the two virtual dial spaces are both customizable. The left one that normally shows a speedometer, but it can also display either an analog clock, consumption information, a trip itinerary screen, audio info or a digital speedo. The right hand dial meanwhile normally shows a rev counter, but that can also have the tachometer with added tyre pressure, engine output or consumption info. Or you can have this right hand dial space showing nav mapping or safety assistance info. Finally, you can also tailor the area between the dials, the center part of the instrument binnacle screen, where you have a choice of viewing your current settings for drive assistance, for phone, navigation, radio, media and display style. Top trim levels also get a brilliant 13-speaker, 9-channel Burmester surround sound system, and this particular car's energizing comfort package, which combines music, lighting and scent into a couple of selectable programs, Refresh and Vitality. They're aimed at rejuvenating you at the end of a tiresome day. There's also a training option aimed at relieving muscle strain on longer trips. Above entry-level trim, you get the intelligent energizing coach feature, which recommends individual programs that are based on the kind of journey that you're on. It can even communicate with a smart watch or a fitness tracker if you happen to be wearing one, and then automatically select a perfectly suited energizing theme that you can start directly just when you need it. As for cabin storage, well, there's pretty much everything you'll want. The smartly trimmed cover of this stowage area at the bottom of the center stack angles back to reveal twin cup holders, a couple of USB-C ports and a wireless charging mat. Further back between the seats is this twin-lidded bin, which incorporates a further USB-C port together with the converter leads that you'll need for it. There are bottle holders in the deep door bins. The driver's one incorporates switches for the electric tailgate and for the power deployable tow bar if you have either feature. And you'll get a spacious glove box too, complete with a pen clip, plus ticket clips on the sun visors and an overhead sunglasses compartment. Time to take a seat in the rear. Now the doors open nice and wide, as you'd want in a car that's often used in Europe as an upmarket taxi. And the first thing you find inside is more than ample space. Again, no great surprise given this E-Class model's private hire popularity, although headroom might be a touch tight for those over 6 foot. If the front passengers have their seats at the lowest setting, you might find room for your feet slightly limited, but otherwise the rear footwells here are big and broad, plus there are pronounced knee room cutouts in the front seat backs. The upholstery is supportively contoured too. It holds you in a little more firmly than is usual, although that does mean a little less comfort for anyone who has to sit in the middle, legs splayed around this rather prominent central transmission tunnel. This flap above the central transmission tunnel holds this 12-volt socket and a couple of USB-C ports. If there are only 2 of you, then this central armrest can be brought down with its shallow lidded storage tray and neat pull-out cup holders. We like the fact that the shoulder height window line removes some of the claustrophobia that you sometimes feel in rival models. And if you've specified the twin panelled panoramic glass roof, the cabin gets a lighter and airier feel. Vents in the B-pillars with twin circular air vents in the centre console keep you cool, and if you've avoided base trim, you'll get these controls for them just below, which allows you to create the rear cabin as a separate climate zone. The spacious door bins, they're big enough to hold a 1 litre water bottle. You get elasticated seat back pockets, plus there are coat hooks on the B-pillars and in the upper grab handles. There are ISOFIX child seat fastenings too for the outer seats, although they feature pull-off covers which would be quite easy to lose. Let's move around to the luggage area, the boot in the case of this saloon model, which gets this rather pointless automatic operation if you've opted for a top of the range variant with the keyless go comfort package. With the lid up, we find the body sides sloping in towards the bottom, which leaves a narrower entrance than you might expect. However, inside, the capacity you get with a conventional E-Class is still one of the largest in the class. For the saloon, it's rated at 540 litres. That's only matched in class by the Jaguar XF. The BMW 5 Series and the Audi A6 are both rated at 530 litres. With a bit of pushing and shoving, 8 carry-on cases will fit in a standard E-Class, with another able to be accommodated beneath the boot floor. That brings the total capacity to 9, the same as an A6, but 1 more than you'll get in a 5 Series. Mind you, we haven't got anything like that kind of capacity here, because this is a plug-in hybrid E-Class variant, the battery system for which compromises trunk space to such an extent that the space on offer falls to just 370 litres, and that's less than you get from a Golf. Whatever powertrain you select for this saloon model, you can free up more space by making use of the now standard split folding backrest. It usefully divides 40-20-40, so you can, if necessary, push longer items like skis through without disturbing rear seated folk. There's no 12-volt socket back here, but you do get the useful side net for smaller items. Of course, if you're really interested in boot capacity, you'll have opted for the E-Class Estate body style, which in its conventional forms offers a capacity figure that remains class leading at 640 litres. It's 565 for the rival A6 Avant and 570 litres for the 5 Series Touring. Again though, you'll lose around 160 litres of that if you opt for one of the E-Class plug-in hybrid variants. Either way though, with a station wagon version of this Mercedes, you'll get a square, usefully shaped cargo area with 1100 millimetres of width between the wheel arches, which is why the E-Class Estate is just about the only car that you could choose that can accommodate a Euro pallet. There is no longer the option of having a third row seat bench fitted in the back though. The revised E-Class Estate second row rear bench has gained additional cargo related functionality, and that makes it possible to position the backrest at an approximately 10 degrees steeper angle. This creates an additional 30 litres of cargo volume while continuing to enable full use to be made of 5 seats, which could be just what you need to cram in suitcases on an airport run. Plus, as with the Saloon, there's a useful 40-20-40 split for the rear backrest. To release the backrests, there are electric switches located in the load compartment and to the right and left next to the backrests. Use these and up to 1,820 litres of fresh air can be freed up with the conventionally engined E-Class estate models. No segment rival can get anywhere close to that figure. Even the 1,660 litre figure of the plug-in estate models is reasonably class competitive. Given the need for this E-Class to slot into the Mercedes range between the smaller C-Class, mid-sized executive model and the larger S-Class full luxury segment Saloon, you could pretty much guess at this car's pricing span. So if you're reckoning that the mainstream E-Class Saloon and estate models that we're looking at here will be sold at figures starting at around £40,000 and ranging up to just above £60,000, then you're just about right. As you can see, it's a four-door variant that we have here. There's a £2,000 premium to pay if you want the alternative estate. The E-Class Coupe and Cabriolet body styles aren't our focus here, but for reference, using the Saloon body shape as a starting point, you'd be looking at needing around £1,500 more for an equivalently trimmed and engined coupe, or around £6,000 more for a comparably trimmed and engined E-Class Cabriolet. Those two sportier body shapes come only with plusher trim levels. With the E-Class Saloon and Estate range, the spec choice is wider. For conventionally engined models, entry-level sport spec gives you a choice of the base diesel, the E220D, or the base petrol variant, that's the mild hybrid E200. They're both similarly priced. The starting point for PHEV EQ Power E-Class customers is AMG line Edition spec, which at the time of this test in summer 2021 saw the petrol E300E, which comes only in Saloon form, priced from just over £46,000. That's £1,250 less than the E300DE diesel model we're trying here. If you want more equipment, all four of the engines I just mentioned can be had in ascending order of plushness with either AMG line Premium, or as in this case, AMG line Night Edition Premium Plus forms. With the last two spec levels, you'll also be offered the additional option of a conventional six-cylinder diesel power plant. That's the E400D, which comes with 4MATIC four-wheel drive. You will obviously pay quite a lot more for a sporting Mercedes-AMG E-Class variant. The E53 4MATIC Plus six-cylinder model we've also recently tried was priced from around £67,500 at the time of this test in summer 2021, with the top V8 powered E63 4MATIC Plus up at around £100,000. From a Mercedes range perspective, there are these days plenty of alternative options if you have an E-Class sized budget, but they are quite engine specific. If you're looking at either of the two main diesel variants, the E220D or this E300DE plug-in model, then much the same kind of spend would get you the brand's GLC mid-sized SUV with the added benefit of 4MATIC four-wheel drive. That car, however, is C-Class based and it's not quite as opulent inside or as spacious on the back seat for that matter. At the other end of the range, in the unlikely event that you happen to be wanting either the E400D diesel or the E53 petrol 4MATIC model with top AMG line Night Edition Premium Plus trim, then a £9,000 spend over the Saloon body style will get you the swoopier looks of the brand's CLS four-door coupe with exactly the same powertrains. In these electrified days, you might also want to consider a Mercedes EV, but if so, you'll need to be expecting to pay a bit more for that. The brand's comparably sized EQC crossover costs from around £65,000. It's far more likely, though, that you'll be considering your chosen E-Class Saloon or Estate against this Mercedes Model's three segment arch rivals, the BMW 5 Series, the Audi A6 and the Jaguar XF. Now, because at the time of this test in summer 2021, the Audi was only being offered with more expensive trim and the Jaguar, of course, was getting on in age, the closest competitor out of that trio is the BMW, and that was updated at around about the same time as this W213 Series E-Class, and it is priced very similarly to the Mercedes. The Audi might still be appealing, priced at the time of this test from around £46,000, which is mid-range E220D money, and the Jaguar XF still has its supporters, mainly because it'll save you quite a lot up front, as much as around £6,000 in volume D200 form. If you want petrol power with the saloon body style with this Mercedes and you're prepared to try something really different, then minority interest choices in the segment include cars like Volvo's S90, which only comes as a petrol plug-in hybrid, and the Lexus ES, which only comes as a self-charging petrol hybrid. Both work out a bit cheaper than equivalent versions of this Mercedes, but ultimately you may well find that they actually work out to be as expensive to run as a comparable E-Class, or maybe even pricier, and that's mainly because they really suffer when it comes to depreciation. The only other sector option is the Maserati Ghibli, which is these days petrol only, but that's hard to match against an E-Class and it's far pricier. The Ghibli hybrid, it's actually just a mild hybrid, costs around £11,000 more than an E300e. That Merc, as we said, being not only a full hybrid, but also a plug-in. The standard Ghibli 3-litre petrol model costs around £5,000 more than an E53, but with only 350 horsepower on tap, offers much less power and is only rear-driven. Top Ghibli S and Ghibli Trofeo models might appeal against an E63, but again, there's less power and only rear-wheel drive. Enough with all the segment alternatives. Let's say you've perused the competition and you've decided that an E-Class saloon or estate of some sort is exactly what you'd like. If that's the case, then you're going to need to know just how generous Mercedes has been here with that standard specification. So we'll look at that now. Even if you stick with base sport trim, you get quite a lot. Outside, there are 5-spoke 17-inch alloy wheels, high-performance LED technology for the headlights and the rear lamp clusters, an active parking assist with Parktronic system, which automatically steers you into spaces, and also includes a reversing camera. Other key features run to power folding mirrors, auto headlamps and wipers, a rear-view camera, all-round parking sensors, Speedtronic cruise control with a variable speed limiter, and the dynamic select driving mode system, which tweaks the throttle response, the steering feel, the damping, and the gear change timings to suit the way that you want to drive. The estate variant also gets roof rails, a powered Easy Pack tailgate, and rear air suspension with level control too. Moving inside, Sport Spec gets you full leather upholstery and brown high-gloss ashwood for the dash and door fittings. Whichever E-Class you want, heated seats with electric adjustment and 4-way lumbar support are included, along with a Napa leather-trimmed multifunction steering wheel, an auto-dimming rear-view mirror, an alarm, and the 64-colour ambient lighting setup, which bathes the cabin in your choice of shades. As part of the switch to the latest MBUX media tech, Mercedes has now standardised its widescreen cockpit layout across the whole lineup, which gives you a 12.3-inch central media display and an instrument binnacle display of the same size. This includes voice recognition, a touchpad central controller, and Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone integration. Other standardised features that used to cost more at the foot of the range include a wireless charging mat and a split folding function for the rear backrest on the saloon. What about information technology? There's certainly lots of that here. Like all the latest Mercedes designs, this one includes what the brand calls Car2X communication. Now, this is a mobile phone supported exchange of information system that'll see your E-Class sending data on driving conditions back to a central hub, which then shares it with other Mercedes drivers. That'll mean that in a way that's almost magical, your E-Class will know in advance about things like icy conditions and traffic jams. It's really clever. And of course, there's an app. There's always an app, isn't there? This one's called Mercedes Me Connect, and it does all the usual vehicle monitoring things, like reminding you when a service is due, plus it can automatically detect and share with you details on your car's wear and tear items. In addition, the app gives you a one-touch button for fast accident and breakdown recovery, and it automatically alerts the rescue services in the event of an accident. It can even track your E-Class if it's stolen. It'll tell you if it's left a pre-agreed geographical boundary if you lend it out, and it'll tell you where the vehicle is if you've forgotten where you parked it. Beyond entry-level trim, you'll be choosing between the three plusher flavours of AMG line trim we mentioned earlier on. Now the starting point here, mid-range AMG line spec, gives you 18-inch AMG 5 twin-spoke wheels and the multi-beam LED intelligent light system for the headlights, which in this form will include 84 individually controlled LEDs, so the lamps can react to light, to road conditions and also to surrounding traffic. At this level in the range, your E-Class will also gain a flat-bottomed AMG steering wheel, brushed stainless steel sports pedals, classier open pore ashwood trim inlays, a black roof liner, AMG floor mats, stitched Artico man-made leather trimming for the upper part of the dashboard, and 3-zone thermotronic climate control, which gives rear seat passengers their own climate zone. If you want something a bit nicer still, AMG line premium spec adds larger 19-inch wheels, a 360-degree surround view camera system and keyless go, keyless entry, including powered boot closing. There's also what Mercedes calls augmented reality navigation. That's effectively a live camera feed of the road ahead, overlaid with house numbers, road names, direction arrows and other bits of useful information which will help you to find your way. The final top trim level is the one we have here, AMG line Night Edition Premium Plus. The Night Edition bit refers to the variant's high gloss black finish for the front apron, the exterior mirror housings, the waistline trim strip and the radiator grille louvre. Plus it also features on the wheels, which are of the 20-inch AMG multi-spoke variety on the ordinary combustion models, although this plug-in EQ power version, this sticks with the more standard AMG 18 inches. At this level in the range, you additionally get memory settings for the front seats, the steering column and for the mirrors, plus grey open pore ashwood trim and a 13-speaker 9-channel Burmester sound system. You also get a clever energising comfort package, and this combines music and those lighting and sense systems into a couple of selectable programs. There's Refresh and there's Vitality, and they're aimed at rejuvenating you at the end of a tiresome day. The energising feature that also has a training option which is aimed at relieving muscle strain on longer trips. Let's finish our perusal of spec by briefing you on the high-performance 6- and 8-cylinder Mercedes-AMG E-Class versions, starting with the entry-level E53 4MATIC Plus model, which comes in its most affordable form with Mercedes premium level of trim, as well as AMG body styling that gets you 19-inch AMG alloy wheels and an AMG dynamic selected driving mode system, via which you can adjust the AMG performance exhaust system and also ride quality from the AMG ride control damping setup with air body control. There's also a multi-beam LED intelligent light system for the headlights, privacy glass and keyless go, keyless entry. Inside an E53 premium model, the Napa leather sports seats are power operated and fitted out with red belts and a memory package. Plus you get black open pore ashwood trim, 3-zone thermotronic climate control, stainless steel pedals and AMG lettering for the floor mats and the scuff plates. There's also the Mercedes widescreen cockpit screen package, which bonds together a 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster layout with 3 display styles and an MBUX central dash infotainment screen of the same size, the latter with an AMG startup screen and the brand's clever augmented reality system. Stretch with your E53 to the top Night Edition Premium Plus trim we recently sampled, and Mercedes will give you larger 20-inch 5 twin-spoke AMG alloy wheels, a black-themed body kit and rear privacy glass. Inside at that level there's a 13-speaker 590-watt 9-channel Burmester surround sound system, a panoramic glass roof and AMG carbon fibre trim. There's also the Mercedes energising comfort package. Now that offers intelligent cross-linking of all the car's comfort systems. Drivers can choose out of 6 different expertly configured programs for activation and for relaxation. Obviously, if you were to stretch up to the top Mercedes-AMG E63 4MATIC Plus petrol model, you'd want a bit more, which is why that quick V8 version only comes in Night Edition Premium Plus trim. This gets you cross-spoke forged matte black 20-inch AMG wheels with red AMG branded brake calipers, plus AMG body styling with polished aluminium side skirts. AMG engineered drive stuff includes dynamic engine mounts, an electronic rear axle limited slip differential, an AMG speed shift MCT 9-speed sport automatic transmission with a race start function and a 2 twin pipe exhaust system integrated into the bumper. E63 drivers also get use of the AMG Track Pace feature, which on a circuit enables lap sector times or even videos to be recorded and analysed. Inside, the steering wheel has part Dynamica microfiber trim and AMG buttons. The upper part of the dash has stitched Napa leather trimming, and the navigation setup gets the augmented reality system that we mentioned earlier on. E63 owners also get, as standard, the extra cost Driving Assistance Plus package of camera safety kit that we'll brief you on in just a moment. Enough with standard trim. After that marathon spec session, you'll probably be quite pleased to hear that Mercedes isn't really bothered about offering many options across the E-Class range. They reason instead that with so many different trim levels, customers will merely move up a spec if they want extra equipment or some more features. Most of what you can have, though, is practically orientated. There's a tow bar available, of course, with ESP trailer stabilisation, although only on the diesel models. And you can add in the roof carrier bars that you'll need for a roof box and for carriers for skis, snowboards and bicycles. You can add in a dash cam and a cool box, and Mercedes also has a range of bespoke designed child seats too. On to paint colour choice. You'll almost certainly be paying your Mercedes dealer more for your choice of paint colour because the only standard shade is solid polar white. All the other finishes, all of them metallic, come at extra cost, like the selenite grey finish we have here. You can pay even more if you wish for 3 extra Designo shades, Hyacinth Red, or the fearsomely expensive selenite grey Magno or brilliant blue Magno. Enough with that, let's move on to safety, which down the years has always been a primary consideration for Mercedes with this car. All the key features you'd expect are present and correct. There's active braking assist, autonomous braking. There's blind spot assist. Now that alerts you if you're just about to pull out when there's a vehicle in your blind spot. There's crosswind assist too, and that will help you to stabilise the car in sudden side gusts of wind. And steer control steering assist. Now that helps you to keep the wheel straight at cruising speeds. Attention assist, now this function will monitor your driving reactions for drowsiness, and the pre-safe program, that tightens the seat belts, it closes the windows, and it even adjusts the seats in a fraction of a second if the stability systems in this car deem an accident is inevitable. There's also an active bonnet to protect pedestrians and the usual twin front, side and curtain airbags, plus a knee bag for the driver. As you'd expect, tyre pressure monitoring and all the usual electronic aids for traction, braking and stability control are included too. If you want to go further, you'll be offered the chance to spend around £1,700 more to get the brand's driving assistance package, which, as mentioned earlier on, is standard only on the E63. We've got that package fitted here, and it includes a range of key extra camera safety elements, amongst which are features which also give this car some limited autonomous driving capability. Let's talk you through all of that. The driving assistance package starts with active blind spot assist, which actively steers you back to safety if you're just about to pull out in front of another vehicle. There's braking stuff too, of course. The active braking assist with cross traffic function that can help to avoid accidents with vehicles ahead, with crossing traffic, and also with pedestrians and or mitigate their consequences. And there's also active emergency stop assist. Now this initiates immediate emergency braking if evasion is impossible. There's also an evasive steering assist that can support you in making evasive manoeuvres if a pedestrian or a cyclist suddenly appears in your path. Plus, a clever route-based speed adjustment feature works with GPS data to automatically adapt your speed before curves, roundabouts and junctions. There's also Pre-Safe Plus, which takes preventative measures when a rear-end collision threatens you, including warning following traffic and locking the brakes on standstill. and you get pre-safe impulse side, which better prepares the cabin for a heavy side impact. Using inflatable bolsters inside the seats, it puts more space between those inside the car and whatever might be just about to smash into it. As we mentioned, the driving assistance package also includes limited autonomous driving capability to suit the mood of the moment. That comes courtesy of the pack's active distance assist distronic system, which is designed to operate on a dual carriageway and works with the Mercedes active steering assist setup, which keeps you in the centre of your designated lane and will, if needed, apply subtle steering correction to ease you back to where you ought to be. The distronic feature is basically a super advanced adaptive cruise control which automatically regulates your distance to the car in front and can, if necessary, remotely slow the car with up to 50% of stopping power. It also works the active speed limit assist feature, which automatically sets the cruise control to speed limit signs as you pass them. It's all very reassuring. We saw signs of a major switch towards running cost efficiency when this W213 Series E-Class was first introduced back in 2016, but a lot's changed since then, and this Mercedes has had to further adapt to our increasingly fully electrified world. And as we've been explaining throughout this film, it's done just that thanks to the way that the company's EQ Power Tech has brought both mild hybrid and PHEV technology to this segment. It's important that we define exactly what you get here. The mild hybrid 48-volt system that you get with the E200, the E450 and the E53 petrol model isn't anything like as sophisticated as a full hybrid powertrain that you get in this segment with the Lexus ES. Unlike with that car, a 48-volt equipped mild hybrid E-Class can't ever run independently on battery energy alone. Instead, with this kind of setup, a belt-driven integrated starter generator replaces a standard alternator, and it enables the recovery and the storage of energy that's usually lost during braking and coasting to charge a tiny 48-volt lithium-ion battery, which is air-cooled. The starter generator also acts as a motor, integrating with the engine and using the stored energy it harvests to provide extra pulling power during normal driving and acceleration, as well as running the vehicle's electrical ancillaries and helping out the power plant's stop-start system in urban traffic. Measuring the difference that all this makes to fuel and CO2 readings is difficult because since we last tested this car, the industry has switched to a completely new WLTP cycle of efficiency measurement. Based on our experience with similar mild hybrid tech in other segment models though, in this class, both Audi's A6 and the BMW 5 Series also offer it, we'd put the efficiency claims at between 3 and 4%, which means that you can classify the benefit as marginal but worth having. You'll want to know how that pans out in terms of the actual figures that you'll be budgeting with and being taxed on, so let's give you the WLTP rated figures based on the saloon body style and the smallest available wheels. Obviously, bigger rims and the extra weight of the alternative estate body shell would have a marginal effect on these stats. The petrol 4-cylinder E200 manages up to 37.2 mpg on the combined cycle and up to 165 grams per kilometre of CO2. For the petrol 6-cylinder E450 4MATIC, the best possible figures are 31.4 mpg and 204 grams per kilometre. Those are readings that with the E53 4MATIC Plus fall only marginally to 30.4 mpg and 212 grams per kilometre. At the time of this test in summer 2021, Mercedes hadn't yet got around to adding the mild hybrid tech into the OM654 series 2-litre diesel engine of the volume E220D. Without it, that variant delivers up to 50.4 mpg and 139 grams per kilometre of CO2, reading some way off the 58.9 mpg and 127 grams per kilometre that you get from the efficiency class leader, the BMW 520D. The 6-cylinder 4MATIC equipped E400D diesel will cost you more to run, of course. That manages up to 40.9 mpg and 176 grams per kilometre. The only other variant in the range, the V8 petrol-powered E63 4MATIC Plus, that'll sell to people who don't give two hoots about efficiency, which is just as well because it can only manage up to 22.8 miles per gallon and 277 grams per kilometre. Although if you were going to get anywhere near those figures in an E63 on a regular basis, then you'd clearly not be driving the car properly and it would deserve a better home. Let's cover VED road tax. For the first year in a mainstream E220D diesel model, you'll be looking at finding £215 or £530 for an E200 petrol and £870 for the E400D 4MATIC. The powerful six-cylinder petrol E450 and E53 variants attract a £1,295 first-year VED figure, while for the V8 E63 it's up at £2,175. In the real world, though, most of us have to insist on responsible cost of ownership figures from a car of this kind, which is why we think that many will be particularly impressed by the two EQ Power plug-in hybrid models that we've been referring to throughout this test. They won't attract any VED tax exposure at all in year one of ownership. Both have an all-electric range in the 31 to 34 mile bracket, and they can be charged via a 7.4 kilowatt home wall box in just 1.8 hours. We chose to try the E300DE diesel variant, which has an officially quoted combined cycle fuel figure of up to 235.4 mpg, along with a CO2 reading of just 33 grams per kilometre, or up to 217.3 miles per gallon and 35 grams per kilometre for an estate. For reference, the figures for the E300E EQ Power Saloon petrol model are up at 166.2 mpg and 37 grams per kilometre. Either way, those CO2 figures will make a big difference to your benefit in kind taxation status, which will fall to just 10%. As a point of reference, a conventional E220D diesel model has a BIK rating of 30%, while for an E200 petrol variant, it's 36%. Whatever E-Class model is chosen, to get anywhere near those officially quoted stats, the driver will of course have to play his or her part. To start with, that means regularly selecting the dynamic selected driving mode system's eco setting. Now this marginally limits the accelerator pedal curve, and it additionally slightly restricts the output of the seat heating, of the heated rear window too, and also the air conditioning of course. You can also bring up two options in the instrument binnacle display, which will help here. A consumption screen shows your average fuel figure, and an eco display grades your driving based on acceleration, decelerating and constancy of speed, showing in real time the bonus frugality that you've achieved through careful driving since the start of your trip. There's also a fuel consumption section on the fascia's central media display screen, which gives you graphical evidence of your success or otherwise in achieving maximum efficiency. What else? Well, the comprehensive 3-year unlimited mileage warranty is built on by Mercedes' Mobilo scheme, and that delivers breakdown cover for up to 30 years as long as you continue to have your car serviced at a Mercedes main dealer. Servicing, by the way, is needed every 12 months or every 15,500 miles, whichever comes around first. And it's also worth knowing that your maintenance outlay can be kept a little in check by going for the optional service care package. Now that takes care of routine maintenance, and it spreads the cost of regular servicing, guaranteeing the price of parts and of labour for up to 4 services, and also covering the cost of all the recommended service items. So brake fluid, spark plugs, air filters, fuel filters and screen wash are all included. There's also an assist dashboard service indicator that monitors engine use and will tell you exactly when a garage visit's due. And it's also worth mentioning that the Mercedes Me remote online services package includes remote self-diagnostic capability, and that enables your E-Class to monitor wear and tear items and to alert your local dealer to let you know if something needs seeing to. As to the question of residual values, well, independent experts reckon that a volume E220D model would retain 45.2% of its value after 3 years and 60,000 miles. That's showing comparable or better than the best that could be managed by direct rivals. You can insure your car through Mercedes, although most company drivers will of course have that included in their lease cost. If you do pay the insurance yourself on the car, then you'll need to know that the E200 petrol model is rated at Group 34E Sport trim or Group 36E with AMG line spec. For the alternative E220D, the ratings vary between 34E and 37E. For the 6-cylinder E400D diesel, it's Group 44E. This E300DE plug-in model attracts ratings between 45E and 47E. For the petrol E300E model, it's Group 43E to 44E. You'll need an understanding broker though for the high performance Mercedes-AMG petrol models of course. The E53 rates at Group 43E and the V8 E63, well that's Group 49E. The E-Class remains a cutting-edge statement of Mercedes style and technology, and in this enhanced guise, this W213 series version puts in an impressive performance. Beforehand it felt like quite an expensive car, now it feels like one that's pricey but which offers a compelling value proposition. It drives with genuine polish, yet it's capable of stepping from cruiser to carouser without breaking a sweat. Operating the car is relatively easy and you rarely feel as if it's imposing its will on you, unlike certain rivals that we could mention. The abiding impression is that this is a very carefully considered vehicle developed by a company steeped in a proud engineering tradition. The latest changes future-proof this E-Class a little further against the constant assault from its key rivals. Perhaps the most interesting thing about this improved 10th generation model though is the fact that its appeal has broadened so far. It was once hard to see anybody under the age of 50 contemplating an E-Class. A more dynamic image and a focus on sharper design and driving dynamics has seen the demographic become younger. What's more, all this has been achieved without diluting this design's Stuttgart DNA and without alienating its legacy market. And that is a mark of a very special car. What else? Well, the estate version remains easily the most practical station wagon in the class, and with all body styles, the E53 variants fill the gap between the standard and high performance derivatives more effectively than is the case with competing cars in rival model lineups. Plus, we should also mention that this plug-in diesel E300DE PHEV is quite simply unique in its segment. We're rather less enamoured with the petrol PHEV variant though. In summary, this is, in short, very much a 21st century full-sized executive sector conveyance. True, it is slightly more expensive than the competition. Also, there are rivals you could choose, which would be more dynamically rewarding to drive, although, as Mercedes well knows, that kind of thing doesn't tend to be prioritised by many likely customers. Certainly, if you can see beyond those two issues, then what's on offer here remains arguably the ultimate statement of technology and luxury in this part of the market, and possibly even a package good enough to leave you really questioning the need to spend more on a larger S-Class model. The best or nothing, that was the slogan that Mercedes founder Gottlieb Daimler lived by. If it's yours too, then we think you'll like this car.